Mr. President Donald J. Trump, you looked awful wearing a white shirt and a purple tie. Don't you have a strong constitution? Don't you think it was all American made? I personally believe it was, and I am confident about that after reviewing this document. Receipt of submission of the application for registration in the National Population Register, which reveals the sole reason behind all the abuses I have experienced. It states that I was required to provide an iris scan so my family could receive government aid. Everything was carried out using an electronic digital endoscope invented by Basil Hair Switch. I'm not really good with names. An American, an American physician. But why specifically iris biometric data? I read somewhere big data algorithms might create digital dictatorships in which all power is concentrated in the hands of the tiny elite, while most people suffer not from exploitation but from something far worse: irrelevance. To understand the nature of this technological challenge, perhaps it would be best to start with the job market. Whenever they become impatient or bored by all the talk of artificial intelligence, big data, algorithms, and bioengineering, I usually need to mention just one magic word to snap them back to attention: jobs. The technological revolution might soon push billions of humans out of the job market and create a massive new useless class, leading to social and political upheavals that no existing ideology knows how to handle. All the talk about technology and ideology might sound abstract and remote, but the very real prospect of mass unemployment or personal unemployment leaves nobody indifferent. For example, many doctors focused almost exclusively on processing information. They absorb medical data, analyze it, and produce a diagnosis. Nurses, in contrast, also need good motor and emotional skills in order to give a painful injection, replace a bandage, or restrain a violent patient. Hence, we will probably have an AI family doctor on our smartphone decades before we have a reliable nurse robot. After all, emotions are not some mystical phenomenon. They are the result of a biochemical process. Hence, in the not too distant future, a machine learning algorithm could analyze the biometric data streaming from sensors on and inside your body, determine your personality type and your changing moods, and calculate the emotional impact that a particular song, even a particular musical key is likely to have using your biometric data. The algorithms could even produce personalized melodies which you alone in the entire universe would appreciate. Soon, authority might shift again from humans to algorithms, just as divine authority was legitimized by religious mythologies, and human authority was justified by the liberal story. So, the coming technological revolution might establish the authority of big data algorithms while undermining the very idea of individual freedom. As more and more data flows from your body and brain to the smart machines via the biometric sensors, it will become easy for corporation and government agencies to know you, manipulate you, and make decisions on your behalf. Even more importantly, they could decipher the deep mechanisms of all bodies and brains, and thereby gain the power to engineer life. When a monkey, mouse, or human sees a snake, fear arises because millions of neurons in the brain swiftly calculate the relevant data and conclude that the probability of death is high. Feelings of sexual attraction arise when other biochemical algorithms calculate that a nearby individual offers a high probability of successful mating, social bonding, or some other coveted goal. Moral feelings such as outrage, guilt, or forgiveness derive from neural mechanisms that evolved to enable group corporation. All these biochemical algorithms were honed through millions of years of evolution. If the feeling of some ancient ancestor made a mistake, the genes shaping this feeling did not pass on them to the next generation. Feeling are thus not the opposite of rationality, they embody evolutionary rationality. This is already happening in the field of medicine. The most important medical decisions in our life rely not on our feeling of illness or wellness or even on the informed prediction of our doctor, but on the calculations of computers which understand our bodies much better than we do. Within a few decades, big data algorithms informed by a constant stream of biometric data could monitor our health 24/7. They could detect the very beginning of influenza, cancer, or Alzheimer's disease long before we feel anything is wrong with us. They could then recommend appropriate treatments, diets, and daily regimens custom built for our unique physic, DNA, and personality. People will enjoy the best healthcare in history, but for precisely this reason, they will probably be sick all the time. There is always something wrong somewhere in the body. There is always something that can be improved. In the past, you felt perfectly healthy as long as you didn't sense pain or you didn't suffer from an apparent dis- disability such as limping. I'm sorry, it's funny. But by 2015, thanks to biometric sensors and big data algorithms, diseases may be diagnosed and treated long before they lead to pain or disability. As a result, you will always find yourself suffering from some medical condition and following this or that algorithmic recommendation. If you refuse, perhaps your medical insurance would become invalid or your boss would fire you. Why should they pay the price of your obstinacy? What is already beginning to happen in medicine is likely to occur in more and more fields. The key invention is the biometric sensor, which people can wear on or inside their bodies and which converts biological processes into electronic information that computers can store and analyze. Given enough biometric data and enough computing power, external data processing systems can hack all your desires, decisions, and opinions. They can know exactly who you are. Such problems, however, can be solved if we just allow the algorithm to collect real-time data on us as we actually watch movies instead of relying on our dubious self-reports. Star for starters, the algorithm can monitor which movies we completed and which we stopped watching halfway through. Even if we tell the whole world that Gone with the Wind is the best movie ever made, the algorithm will know we never made it past the first half hour and we never really saw Atlanta burning. Yet the algorithm can go much deeper than that. Even if we tell the whole world that Gone with the Wind is the best movie ever made, the algorithm will know we never made it past the first half hour and we never really saw Atlanta burning. Engineers are currently developing software that can detect human emotions based on the movements of our eyes and facial muscles. Add a good camera to the television, and such software will know which scenes made us laugh, which scenes made us sad, and which scenes bored us. Next, connect the algorithm to biometric sensors, and the algorithm will know how each frame has influenced our heart rate, our blood pressure, and our brain activity. As we watch, say, Tarantino, Pulp Fiction, the algorithm may note that the rape scene caused us an almost imperceptible tinge of sexual arousal, that when Vincent accidentally shot Marvin in the face, it made us laugh guiltily. and that we didn't get the joke about the big kahuna burger, but we laughed anyway, so as not to look stupid. Humans cannot usually detect the difference, but a biometric sensor could. If we want to prevent a small elite from monopolizing such godlike powers, and if we want to prevent humankind from splitting into biological castes, the key question is who owns the data? Does the data about my DNA, my brain, and my life belong to me, to the government, to a corporation, or to the human collective? Mandating governments to nationalize the data will probably curb the power of big corporations, but it may also result in creepy digital dictatorships. Politicians are a bit like musicians, and the instrument they play on is the human emotional and biochemical system. They give a speech, and there is a wave of fear in the country. They tweet, and there is an explosion of hatred. I don't think we should give this musician a more sophisticated instrument to play on. Once politicians can press our emotional buttons directly, generating anxiety, hatred, joy, and boredom at will, politics will become a mere emotional circus. As much as we should fear the power of big corporations, history suggests that we are not necessarily better off in the hands of overmighty governments. As of March 2018, I would prefer to give my data to Mark Zuckerberg than to Vladimir Putin, though the Cambridge Analytica scandal revealed that perhaps there isn't much of a choice here, as my data entrusted to Zuckerberg may well find its way to Putin. Private ownership of one's, I prefer membership. Private membership of one's own data may sound more attractive than either of these options, but it is unclear what it actually means. We have we have had thousands of years of experience in regulating the ownership of land. We know, we know how to build a fence around the field, place a guard at the gate, and control who can go in. Over the past 2 centuries, we have become extremely sophisticated to regulating the ownership of industry. Thus, today, I can own a piece of General Motors and a bit of Toyota by buying their shares. But we don't have much experience in regulating the ownership of data, which is inherently a far more difficult task because, unlike land and machines, data is everywhere and now here at the same time. It can move at the speed of light, and you can create as many copies of it as you want. So we had better call upon our lawyers, politicians, philosophers, and even poets to turn their attention to this conundrum. How do you regulate the ownership of data? This may well be the most important political question of our era. If we cannot answer the question soon, our sociopolitical system might collapse. People are already sensing the coming cataclysm. Perhaps this is why citizens all over the world are losing faith in the liberal story, which just a decade ago seemed irresistible. How then do we go forward from here, and how do we cope with the immense challenges of the biotech and infotech revolutions? Perhaps the very same scientists and entrepreneurs who disrupted the world in the first place could engineer some technological solution. For example, might networked algorithms form the scaffolding for a global human community that could collectively own all the data and oversee the future development of life. As global inequality rises and social tensions increase around the world, perhaps Mark Zuckerberg could call upon his 2 billion friends to join forces and do something together. So, Daddy Trump, did you say that you don't like being around the bloodiest? Give this man a seat, he's going to faint. Then you need to be allowed to leave the room before the blood. I know that you don't have a strong constitution. Back to my iris biometric data, I later learned, according to trusted military sources, that my family tree owns enterprises that sold aircraft components, including screws. It also owns Disney Land, toy animation, multiple bank accounts across all continents. Yet, what interests me more are ancient books, and if I say so, prophets belonging, including Solomon, Ring, and much more. Where is all of that? Looking back at the reason why I was targeted by the Moroccan royal family all this time, only to marry its daughter, Khadija, who later turned out to have a young girl. I came to believe it was done to obtain my iris biometric data and to take control of my ancestors' inheritance. To hide all of that and get away completely clean, they used multiple methods, including aligning themselves with the latest advances in science, such as bioengineering, neurogenetics, and big data algorithms, while also collaborating with criminals within secret services, police, the military, and prisons. Though this they sought to monitor and control everything I do, what I hear, feel, touch, say, interact with, and more. As naive as I was, I believed I could occupy the position of a Moroccan prince. Later, a scam circulated claiming that I could replace the king following multiple revolutions. But this is not the topic of this conversation. These people used what I believe to be my ancestors' inheritance to finance multiple terrorist organizations that the world has since witnessed. In other words, from a young age, I was the inheritor of my ancestors' treasures, lands, and knowledge. But these people wanted to steal it from me, take it away from me. Worse still, I feared they intended to end my life to get away with it. What makes this unforgivable is that my adoptive family was aware of it, as I have been kidnapped from my German mother, yet no one dared to say a word. Not only the Moroccan royal family, including King Mohammed VI and other members of the royal household, but also a story involving an elite princess from the desert region of Merzouga and its tribes emerged. According to these narratives, she became aware of my story after several years of alleged espionage. I also came to believe that powerful international actors were involved, including figures associated with the United States of America, such as Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton, not to mention Obama, as well as French intelligence services and Spain, all allegedly seeking my inheritance. In my own summary of their corporate activities, what they did was create multiple organizations: white, black, blue, and others present all over the world. Their main missions, as I understood them, were stealing money, spreading terror, studying the human brain, and manipulating people. I believe you may have witnessed even worse, both with me and with others. What is truly unfortunate is that their action went too far, targeting children at a young age and exposing them to drug testing, something I personally witnessed in the Merzouga region of Morocco. Even more disturbing, I also personally witnessed cases of child sex trafficking in Dakhla, Morocco. In addition, drugs such as cocaine or similar substances are deliberately planted in Dakhla, a city where I personally observed this happening because the weather conditions there are considered favorable. Even more disturbing, many patient files at Rabat Hospital Ibn Sina were lost. Who knows whether their organs were sold? To cover this up, medical waste is being dumped into the sea. Moreover, witnesses and other people have been victims of unverified medication, causing deaths and injuries, something I personally witnessed among targeted individuals. Far worse, metals from the Dara and Tafilat regions are reportedly used to illegally manufacture weapons, which are then held by the so-called Rainbow Organization. Even more alarming, King Mohammed VI allegedly bribed entire tribes to perform superstitious acts intended to drive people into mental distress, an act forbidden by both law and religion. So, yes, this is my appeal to you, Donald Trump, President of the United States. Why specifically iris biometric data? To get more details, Crédit Agricole القرض الفلاحي, a Moroccan bank established in Morocco, holds all the fraud and scams related to my case. Moreover, these so-called rainbow organizations are nothing but terrorists using the same money to spread terror. People come from all over the country to harass me everywhere with noise, playing car horns, Pavlov dog experiment to trigger a dopamine reaction. They administer toxins to force genetic mutation, not to forget female hormones. In my opinion, senators, Congress, men or women, and the Supreme Court must acknowledge these facts and consider appropriate justice for those responsible, unless they themselves are involved with these organizations or are acting under threats of death. Thus, this is our case and the case of the New World Order. Thank you, Mr. President. Indeed, the US military وش حنا عسكر ولا بر. Huh? I was impressed in 2024 looking high into the sky. A B-2 aircraft appeared. I was completely in awe. The aircraft moved upward in silence. Are you always with me? Well then, would you like to move it, and start investigating your corrupt government and anyone involved in this so-called rainbow organization? The pattern you're looking for is my DNA, how I speak, the words I use, and the gestures I make, as well as my iris biometric data. These people are nothing but copycats, whether politicians, authorities, or others. The real question is how did they obtain this information? The second point is if you are only focusing on Americans, check anyone who tried to learn Arabic in the last decade and ask why they wanted to learn it. The third point is you'll need to examine the people in Morocco and the US who made profits from NFT, crypto, trading, and more. The question is who helped them access this data? And hey, your people, our people, have been after me for 12, 13 years. School kids, co-workers, teammates, how did you gain leverage over the defendant life? Or do you still want to sit back and watch the green devil on Just for Laughs, repeating, Mommy, it's over?